as we developed Dollar, one of the things we've noticed is that there is across the country sort of a diminished view of college, and that can translate to a diminished view of education or knowledge. And I think that's a big negative for society as a whole, right? We got here because of knowledge. But it's not people's fault when it's so expensive. I think, you had mentioned that some schools quote $65,000 a year, and it's not even maybe like in the Ivy Leagues or anything like that. Uh, that's unsustainable, and that regular families cannot afford to do that, and so they don't really have many options but to take out loans or to you know find another way. Maybe don't go to college, and sure, I mean, college is not for everybody, but for those that do want to go to college, it makes a big difference. We just have to think about how we're pricing these things.
Right. And now my son's college counselors are telling us that it's not just undergraduate. They're saying if your child is going to go to college, they have to go to graduate school as well. So now it's not just 4 years. You have to plan for graduate school as well. So there's that extra added expense there.
Yeah, and the loans for grad school are far more expensive too.
Right. Right. So how long has Dollar been around? How long ago did you start it?
We've been in the market since January of 2021.
Okay, great, great. So what inspired you to start your own business, to start Dollar?
I'm a first generation immigrant. I just got my citizenship last year, and I came to the US to go to school.
Okay.
Um, and I used to feel so jealous of people with student loans, right? Because I thought, what a wonderful privilege that you can take a loan from the government, go to school, get a job, and then start paying off the debt. Because my family had to go through incredible hardship and sacrifice to put me through school. Um, and I was very fortunate that I scraped by and managed to get a full scholarship to my master's and PhD programs. But it was very hard, right? It was not, it was very, very hard. And so I always felt, wow, I wish I had student loans. What a wonderful mechanism of being a citizen of the US, that you can do this thing and find a better future for yourself. Uh, you know, sure. So many years later, I went to Florida Tech, which is a fantastic school. My friends and I, we all got really great jobs right out of school. All of us had advanced degrees. All of us were making a lot of money. And, my friends with student loans were still complaining. And I thought, at some point in your life, you should be grateful. Like, just be grateful, okay? Because you've done the thing. You've got the job. You're working exactly where you want to work. You're living exactly where you want to live. And you're making six figures, right? Like, a lot of people can't do that. But it turns out that just like me, they were broke, right? We made a lot of money on paper, but at the end of the day, we were sending money home, like supporting my parents, my grandparents, supporting the future generation. So if my niece or my nephew wants to take a course, I'm the guy that they reach out to, and that doesn't leave much money to do things that society might expect of somebody who has an advanced degree who's making a lot of money, right?
Right.
And I'm talking about simple things like buy a house, have kids, get married. All of those things are very expensive to do. Um, and it turns out that my friends with student loans were in exactly the same boat. A lot of them, so Florida Tech recruits heavily from the Midwest. A lot of them are from here, and a lot of them were first generation college goers. A lot of them had no other option but to take out student debt to go to school. They wanted to break out of that cycle of poverty, or push their families forward. Their parents had hopes for them; they had hopes for themselves. And so I immediately felt very embarrassed, right? Like I've been judging these people for so long, but they're in the same boat as I am. Their families went through incredible hardship and sacrifice too. And I thought, you know what? Like the three things I love the most are math, finance, and people. And so, and I'm kind of good at those things too. So I could make a difference here. And so we ended up speaking with a bunch of people about this. And so there's three of us, by the way, at Dollar. All of us are first generation immigrants. All of us went to Florida Tech, and we all had the same feelings, more or less, right? And so we went out there and said, okay, it could be that we're just exposed to people who have an unusual amount of student debt. Florida Tech's a very expensive private technical college. So we went to spoke to a bunch of folks, and we of course started with the prevalent views in society. You might hear people say things about folks with student loans, right? Like, oh, maybe they're lazy, or they're not financially educated, or they're not working hard enough, or they're entitled, or things like that. And so we centered our questions to understand and to really get to the point about whether any of those things were actually true, or if there was something else that was the root cause. And it turns out that none of those things are true, right? People are very smart. People understand that budgeting is important. They know how it works. Uh, People are doing everything they can. They're working very hard to get out of this debt so they can actually build a life, right? They can do those simple things, the American dream, to buy a house, start a family, be comfortable, be able to take a couple of vacations a year. Nothing spectacular, right? Like, these are very simple things. Um, and the biggest challenge was money. My wife laughs at me because I spent a year talking to people, and she's like, I could have told you that, like, at the offset, right? Like, you didn't have to go and do all of this. But the really valuable thing about that is that, we now have data. We had data that justified certain courses of action. Money was the problem. And so if we were able to find people extra cash, we could make a real difference to their lives. And so that's how it all started. It's a very roundabout way to answer your question.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. What were some of the biggest challenges to starting up this type of business that you ran into?
Uh, there's a few different things. One is on the trust side of things, right? Like, for instance, when you go to a company and you say, you know what, uh, you should pay thousands of dollars a year to your employee student loans. Uh, you know, let's say you have 50 people and you're making $5,000 in loan payments. You have to make sure that you're trustworthy, right? Like, they're going to give you the money, and expect you to do the thing that you do. And so making sure for us, it was a challenge, right? Is to make sure that before we even offered somebody to move this money for them, that we were well equipped to do that, and they could in fact trust us with that. And so that was one. The second was timing, right? And so we started just before the pandemic struck. And so that was really interesting from a number of perspectives, right? So for one, everybody, like, nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew what the future looked like. Um,
Right.
jobs were just not, like, people were getting laid off or furloughed, or all kinds of businesses didn't know if they were going to exist in a month or two. And then, right around that time, the government instituted as part of the CARES Act, a compensation, or compensation, not the right word, but an incentive for employers to contribute towards student loan payments.
Yeah.
Um, and this, it basically, if you're familiar with tuition reimbursement, it sort of gave the same tax incentives available for tuition reimbursement when companies paid student loans, right? So it expanded that definition. So it was really, really cool, really amazing. And it started from a point of need, because the government realized that, yeah, like, the whole world is falling apart. Health, all of these things are important, but student loans are that much of a problem that we're going to try to fix it by incenting employers to help out.
Right.
So that was really good. The trouble is that around the same time, or not too long after that, uh, this conversation started about forgiveness. And there are so many issues around educational awareness around what that means. And so a lot of folks we would speak with said, you know what, like, I would love to start this program, but what if all the loans are forgiven in a month? Then, I've just wasted my time and money. And there's nothing further from the truth, right? Like, that was not the case. In many ways, if forgiveness had passed, about 20 million Americans would have zero debt, which is a great thing. But that leaves 25 million Americans who now had no other options.
Right.
Right? They were like, okay, the government's done their part. Like, now it's me. Right? There's nothing else coming. And so for those people, the pain would have been far more acute. And we would have still had a very strong market to operate in. But there are these general, consensus views that get in the way sometimes. So that was a big challenge. And so, as much as I personally was rooting for forgiveness, at least to some level, in the end, what the Supreme Court knocking it down has resulted in a lot more interest for what we're doing.
Right. Right. Yes, that's a lot. I mean, just being faced with the pandemic while you're getting started. I hear that a lot. But you persevered, and you're here now. So, getting your business up and running. I mean, what are some of the misconceptions you hear about starting a business that you had to overcome?
I'm fortunate that I come from my both my parents are entrepreneurs, and so I didn't really have. I'd seen it firsthand. I'd seen the joys and also the deep valleys of despair that come with owning, and operating your own business. So from that perspective, I was prepared for it. I understood what it took, and that very likely there's going to be a lot of failure involved.
Yeah.
So not too many challenges from that perspective. I think for us, we it was also a challenge in the early days to secure some funding. Right? So we needed to raise some venture capital to at least get us off the ground. It costs a lot of money to build trust and be able to move money on other people's behalf in a compliant way. And so, and it costs money to pay salaries and do other things like that to run the service. And so that was a big challenge because at that time, again, because of the pandemic, nobody knew what was going on. The things that were hot were maybe not the best things, right? Like a lot of folks poured a lot of money into crypto,
Right.
and that didn't go too well. So that was a bit of a challenge. So, I'd never experienced fundraising from that perspective. So I had to learn that from zero. And I'm very fortunate to have some great friends and advisors who were able to guide me through the process to eventual success.
So there's three of you that started Dollar. Do you have additional employees as well, support staff?
So we have expanded the team. Yes, we have now a dedicated growth leader, so a VP of sales and growth. We work with a number of consultants to do various things that we at least now don't need a full-time person for. And I think our strongest base of support comes from our advisors. We have some really, really incredible dedicated advisors who go out there and like roll up their sleeves and do real work.
Okay, great. So you're already expanding.
That's right.
Fantastic. So let me ask you this. This is something I hear from a lot of people, not just in the workforce in general. How do you maintain your work-life balance if that's even possible?
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing. And I think that you're happier when you realize that that's not a thing, right? Like when work needs 100% of my attention, work is going to get 100% of my attention. And when family needs 100% of my attention, family gets it, right? So it's just
Right.
it's being very intentional about what I'm doing at that time. So I'll give you an example. Every day at 5 o'clock, I stop whatever I'm doing and I go take a walk with my family. Doesn't matter what the conditions are, provided it's like I have a 2-year-old son, provided it's not going to be at risk. We're going to be outside taking a family walk, and then that goes on till after dinner, till he's down for bed, and I get to spend some time with my wife. And during that time, I'm not taking any calls. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not checking email, and I'm very intentional about that. I'm present in that moment. Um, After that, I get back to working. Sometimes I work till 2 in the morning, and repeat the process the next day. But when I'm at work, I'm at work, and when I'm not at work, when I'm with my family, that's where I am 100%. And I think for
So
me, that's
so
what work-life balance is.
so in a way, you're very intentional about it. You have habits that you make sure that you do work, but then you're taking time aside to make sure you are with your family. You
Yeah,
spend
but
time with your son, you spend time with your wife.
100%. And this it's not like I woke up one day and was like just doing that. Um, I realized that it had to be done because what I was doing before wasn't working. It was, and I found myself not being 100% present in what I was doing, right? So I might have been working, but I was feeling guilty about not spending time with my family, and that meant that I wasn't as productive as I could have been, or engaged in my work. Or I'm with my family and I'm feeling guilty about that project that I need to wrap up, or whatever. And then you're not happy in any sense, right? You're not
Right.
being productive with family, you're not being productive at work. Uh, and I realized that you just have to separate the two things. And when you're doing one of them, you just do that thing.
That says a lot because very many people don't realize that, and and it takes them forever to get to that conclusion that they're doing that. They just spend that time focused only on work, sometimes until it's too late.
Yeah,
So good for you.
thank
Um,
you.
Let me ask you this. So you're in growth mode. Can you offer us a little glimpse into the future of Dollar, where you see things going?
Yeah, we're so it's been a very positive start to the year. We expect that 24 is going to be our breakout year. Um, really strong growth, and we're looking, when you start, you're looking at growth. Okay, let's measure growth on an annual basis, because you don't know what that means, right? But as we've gotten better at understanding exactly what that means, now we're looking at measuring on a much more frequent basis, which means we're putting out pressure on ourselves in a different way now. We've understood what we are selling. We've understood who we sell to, and so now it's time to execute and do that thing.
Perfect. What challenges do you see down the road, whether it's just the business environment, whatever it might be? Is there anything standing in the way that you think are going to be the biggest challenges going forward in 2024 or beyond?
I don't think so. I don't think that there are any obvious glaring challenges, and I could have told you this in 2019, and then 2020 happened, right? And so we don't know what we don't know, but nothing obvious sticks out as a clear impediment to success.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So then I guess a final question: what advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs that are sitting out there having trouble deciding whether or not they should pull the trigger to start their own business or not? What advice would you give them?
I'm biased, man, so I'm always going to lean towards just do the thing. The There's some things that you just learn by doing. You can sit down and theorize all day, and that's going to be completely a waste of everybody's time.
Right.
The only way to learn those things is by doing them. But I will also say that, if you're starting because you want to make a lot of money, then you're probably going to really be disappointed. Because if that's your focus, then you're not focused on customers, you're not focused on what the thing you're actually selling is, and you tend to make excuses about who's failing when it's you. It's not your customers, it's not the market, it's you. And so, having very strong conviction, for example, with us, we survived through the pandemic. We could have shut down many times. And some people thought that might have been the smart thing to do, but I knew that in my heart that we were creating a lot of value for the people who had that student debt, and we were doing it in a way that made a real impact. And so nothing was going to stop me, right? And that comes that of course, we're going to make money, we're going to do a lot of great things, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to help people,
Right.
and that makes it easy to wake up every day and get to work.
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. But that's very good advice. Very good advice indeed. Well, listen, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for being on Mastering the Numbers. Can you if you'd like, can you let the audience know your website, phone number, or email address, whatever you'd like to put out there for them?
Yeah, it would be great if folks would visit getdollar.com. That's GETDOLR.com. If you have any employees, even one, it's very likely that they have student loans. So we'd love to help you out with that.
Great, everyone out there, please visit his website. Reach out to him if you have any needs for your college loans. Once again, everybody, thank you for listening to Mastering the Numbers. Naveed, thank you for being on my show. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next round on Mastering the Numbers. Take care.
Thanks, Joe.